But I say the thing that might be the weirdest thing about this cycle has been the contrary behavior of American boomers, right? If you ask almost any theoretician out there, academic, old people, are they inflationary or deflationary? And the answer is almost without fail, they're deflationary. They're past the peak in their spending. Their peak spending's in the 40, 45, and then they're deflationary spending, And the difference is that the boomers are extraordinarily inflationary. And the reason they're extraordinarily inflationary is sort of a historically unique reason, which is if you go back, as of last summer, the boomers, according to the Wall Street Journal, had $35 trillion in net assets. And how they acquired those net assets was, in no small part, policy that really began being implemented in the 70s and definitely in the 80s was U.S. government deficits were sterilized in asset markets by virtue of U.S. government policies to defer compensation into asset markets, right? So when you think about the average baby boomer, when you say they made whatever, for 40 years, 35 years, from 1980 to 2015, they made X dollars, and the U.S. government gave them an incentive where they could take 15% of those X dollars that they would have made in cash comp and spent into the economy, generating CPI inflation, and instead put it into the asset markets. We'll give you a tax break. You can take it off your taxes. It will grow tax-free, and then we'll tax you at the back end. IRAs, same thing, 403Bs. It's all been one giant exercise in sterilizing U.S. government deficits in the asset markets. And then we don't count asset inflation as inflation, right? That was inflation. It was just deficits going to the end. Yeah. So these boomers, fast forward 40 years, these boomers have $35 trillion net assets. And then you scare the shit out of them that they're going to die, like way sooner than they thought. So now you got 35 trillion in assets, a generation that is putting on the biggest YOLO trade in the history of the world. They're like, I might die in 2 years. Let's get on a plane. Let's go to a restaurant. Let's order a steak. Let's go, fix the house. Let's fix the house again. I don't like that deck. Rip it down. My kids need a house. Let's get them a house. Let's get that kid a house. And so when you hear, it's services inflation. There's $35 trillion trying to cram itself out of the asset markets into the real economy by virtue of this YOLO trade.
Defense